get that taken care of, and then we can proceed with the painting contract.
Okay, thanks. The driveways have been completed. I think everybody's pleased with them.
Yeah, nice.
And they look nice.
Both.
Okay, next, I added zoning because I neglected to put it on at the beginning of the, to go over the zoning. I was asked a question today, Carl, that I didn't have an answer to, so I said I would ask tonight, regarding the recommendations from the NIDA County Planning back in October 23.
Yep.
They asked me if this was resubmitted to them or how.
No, they didn't want it resubmitted. I specifically asked the question of the gentleman who did the review. I said, we've made all the changes you recommended. I said, do you want it again? He said, no. As long as it's done, send us a letter saying you changed it. So we did that.
Alrighty, that was the question. And then as far as the map overlay, there are still some concerns that individuals are having.
Yeah, the map was mentioned in that letter from Oneida County.
The map, the mention on the map was that it didn't show individual tax parcels.
Well, they mentioned quite a few things.
Well, we corrected everything else that they didn't have on it.
Well, but they didn't see it as it was corrected.
Well, they didn't see the changes in the ordinance because they said we don't want a resubmission. So none of the materials for the zoning law were resubmitted after we made the changes that they recommended.
Are you saying that they said, don't send us anything no matter
Exactly. Once that, I said, we've made all of the changes that you recommended. Do you want to review it again? Would you like another copy? And they said, no, we don't want it.
Okay, well, they offered to help with the map. And the map, like the overlays overlap state property, overlap Delta Reservoir state property. There's a ton of state property there in those two overlays. And it's not shown. It would be the property lines that you're describing. I think that should be shown on there.
Well, the overlays do not correspond to property lines. There is a specific dimension off the center line of each road for the overlay. It has nothing to do with the individual property lines.
Onto state land, you can't, I don't believe you can designate an overlay on state property.
You put an overlay anywhere you want on the map. It's just an overlay. It doesn't change the zoning. It doesn't change the use of the land. It's an overlay that allows you to take a different consideration on how you look at it. That's all an overlay does. It's the same thing with the land conservation. It does not change the underlying zoning. It just says you're going to take a look at what the proposed use is and see if there's an impact. That's all an overlay does. It doesn't authorize anything. I tried to explain this at the last meeting. It doesn't authorize anything. It simply provides the planning board and the zoning board a different level of authority to look at something. That's all it does. If you're in the commercial overlay, it doesn't mean you're automatically entitled to a commercial use. You still have to apply for a special use permit. It'll be reviewed by the planning board. It'll be reviewed by the zoning board. And they don't have to be approved.
Thank you for your work after the last meeting. You said that it explains what can and can't happen in an overlay. What are those two things?
What can't happen in an overlay is you can't violate the existing zoning regulations without permission. Okay, in an overlay, you get what the last gentleman said, you get a little extra consideration. In other words, if you're in a commercial overlay and you normally would not be allowed for a particular use, you don't have to apply for a use variance. You apply for a special use permit under the commercial overlay.
Can you give me some examples of what would be considered as a commercial use and what wouldn't?
We actually defined it within the ordinance there that it consists of well, I think we call it a commercial indoor or whatever. No, you can't put an industrial complex in there. You can't tear down a house and put in a full auto sales lot or anything. But if you wanted to put if somebody bought an old house and wanted to tear it down and put in a convenience store, that would be considered a legitimate use. It's a small retail. That's commercial.
Seems vague.
I mean, I offered the last time, I said I could take it out entirely
Well, it's
and
not,
just eliminate it entirely, and I went back and I had a recommendation to straighten it out and clarify what was and wasn't allowed, and I tried to do that. And there's wording in there now that says, that you've got a commercial overlay, the granting of a permit is not automatic. I put those words down and make it perfectly clear that you can't come in and say, I'm on a commercial overlay, I want a permit. It's not an automatic grant. I mean, if the commercial stuff bothers you that much, I will just take it out and people can come in for use variances. But that's not going to satisfy the question.
Carl.
We took two areas that are the only ones that would be even remotely appropriate for commercial development. And we said, we'll put an overlay in there that will make it a little easier for people to come in and get approvals. That's all. It doesn't change the zoning. If it's a residential, rural, agricultural, it remains that. If it's residential community, it remains that.
Charlie, let's say that someone tears a house down and puts up a convenience store, which they approve.
Okay.
And somebody else with a house says, well, I'd like a convenience store over on the other side of the lake. And applied. Would it be difficult for them to deny that,
Well,
having already awarded one?
a special use permit is almost never completely denied. A special use permit is almost always granted, but with conditions. Whereas a variance is almost never granted. So the problem is with New York state law, because we don't have an in-between
Answer.
type of
Right.
of category. A variance is extremely difficult to get, almost never granted, whereas a special use permit is, you pretty much have to grant it, but you get to set conditions.
That's about it, yeah. But the granting of one special use permit does not automatically create a precedent that if somebody else asks for one, they automatically get it. We would still review it, we would still put conditions on it if that's necessary.
The conditions would certainly
Yeah.
be unique to every single property.
Right. So for example, if somebody bought a lot on the north side of Lake Delta and you've got all these nice houses down there, we could actually impose architectural standards for what they put up. So you have to match the characteristic of the neighborhood in the building you put up. You can't put up a set of McDonald's golden arches. You'd have to build a building that would look more like all of the other residences in the area where you put it up. And we would have the power to do that.
Yes, and I like that, I appreciate
Yeah.
that. I just wish I could see it in writing somewhere.
Well, that's what there's an entire section in that what a special use permit is and what is required for it. There's a whole section now that deals with nothing but special use permits and all of the things that have to be done to get them, and the things that the board can ask for. So that's fully defined in the ordinance now.
Because we haven't had a lot of commercial endeavors in town, you say it's here, I'm not convinced that it is to the degree that we would be exercising some, quite a bit of control actually, but it seems too loose to me, that's all.
And we can go back to use variances, in which case you'll probably never see any commercial.
I know, you keep trying to.
But those are the only alternatives. If you eliminate that commercial overlay, there is no authority for the planning board or the zoning board to do anything except request a variance.
I'm talking about adjusting the overlay.
Well, we talked about this last time. I can piecemeal it all over the place. And now you're gonna have a little piecemeal thing in there that we've got to sit down and look at, so, well, where's this and where's that? The reason we made it broad is because it's a corridor. And so within that corridor, we want to be able to consider these things as special use permits instead of having to require use variances if that might be the case. Now, in the RRA district, it's relatively broad to start with. So somebody might come in the RRA district and I want to put up a convenience store, and we look at it, so well, the lot's big enough and you can manage all the stuff, so okay, go ahead, because it's permitted in the RRA district. But if you do it in a commercial overlay, you've got more control because now you've got two boards that are going to review it instead of just the ZBA.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the overlay. I just think that it needs some refinement. That's, my opinion.
Okay.
That, Charlie, you weren't here, but we had the Peter, Anna, Larry, and myself met with 4 DOT engineers talking about cleaning up the property on the canal. We finally found out the DOT has control of the canal behind the library and the post office. Initially seeking to get a permit to clean that up, which isn't easy. We're in the process, but while we were together, we talked about the overlay, and they said that entire section, pretty much from the north end of Main Street all the way down, unlikely to provide any places that could have a commercial use because of the canal and because of restrictions on Route 49.
46.
Or 46, wrong town. They were
pretty adamant about it.
Yep. So we've got that section on a map that would indicate that can be considered for the overlay. And I think it's not unlike sending somebody down a dead-end road, telling them maybe you can get through, I don't know. But
So you think that area should be deleted from the overlay is what you're thinking?
yes, and there are probably other areas that the canal, if the map showed where the state land was, we'd have a better indication to quickly summarize whether it's going to be possible or just can't happen. And the county, I believe, did offer their mapping services. I don't want to get rid of the overlay.
Yeah.
Don't misunderstand.
If we're going to take out major chunks of it, that's fine. What I don't want to get into is, well, this is a problem over here, so you can't do that. Remember, the canal is not state property. They have a right-of-way to the canal. Okay, they retain the right-of-way to the entire barge canal. They don't own it. They have a right. They have an unlimited right-of-way to it. So whoever sits on that thing actually owns the property. It's like me and Bankert Road. I actually own property directly to the center of Bankert Road, but the town has an unlimited public right-of-way for a roadway for 24 feet 9 inches from the center line of the road onto my property. But I actually own it. And if the town ever abandoned the road, I could tear it up and it would still be my property.
You're familiar with blue lines?
Yes.
It is a blue line adjacent to the canal.
Yes.
I owned the convenience store at one point, and the canal backs our property. Our property went to the blue line. We did not own the center of the canal or anything associated with the canal. So I don't think in every case that is the situation. And so where there are blue lines, like the reservoir, should be designated on a map. Where there are red lines or blue lines, like along the canal, I think that should be designated on the map as well.
Now, I'm afraid that map would get horribly complex if you tried to put down the entire blue line.
Good maps are not easy.
No, they're not.
I think the other question that comes into play is you've obviously consulted the DOT engineers and some people at the county. ZBA consulted Tug Hill. And so the question comes in as to which expert is correct in terms of how to treat this. Can we create a blanket section, or would it be problematic for the town perhaps create more appearance of spot zoning if we do little sections here, sections there of a corridor that is acceptable. So maybe we need to have a meeting with the two experts, with the board and the town board, and sound it out. And Charlie there.
Two experts being,
The people you consulted, you said last time you had consulted some people at DOT and in a county. Maybe it's possible we could put together a meeting.
I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I guess.
If the county planning department wants to, if they want to take what Tug Hill has done and generate an additional map off of that, I don't have a problem with that. The only reason we went with Tug Hill, because they were the only people who offered to come in and help us. We never heard a word from the county until we sent the thing in. They said, well, we got this whole thing over. I said, we've been working on this for 4 years, never heard a word from you people.
Okay,
So,
I might propose, appreciate Bill's comment, that's a really good path. But it's gonna take some time. I would like to pass everything but the commercial overlay at any point that we can vote on it. Somebody's got their hand up.
okay, that's gonna take me another couple of days to go back and take it all out of the document then. If you're gonna vote on everything except, I have to take it out of the document. I can't leave it in there, because once you vote on that document, it's in there. So it's gonna require another change and a new map. But they can obviously just take that overlay off the map, and it'll still be the full definition of the zones.
If that isn't too much to ask, when
I will get a hold of the people, or just got to get a hold of whoever does the mapping up there and have them just eliminate that. That should be fairly quick.
But I've been doing a lot of talking. Does anybody else on the board have anything to say?
No. Unless we can make the changes afterwards, like you asked, we vote on it. Aren't we allowed to make changes after the fact?
Sure, you can amend it.
You might better
Make
just,
it- I just
I
thought
agree with Len though, you pass everything but that, then work on that, and when you get that done, you can just amend
You
it
can always
back
amend
in.
it to add it back, yes.
It's easier to add it in than put it in and take it out.
Yeah.
It's harder to take stuff out.
As long as that doesn't get delayed months and months and months and months. And a lot of times stuff gets delayed and never gets renewed. Because I like the idea of the commercial overlay. Maybe the map is a little archaic and so forth, but it's well defined, 600 feet from the center line on both sides.
600 feet from the center line on both sides.
And the rest of the document.
And I think the description even says to the blue line on the North Shore Lake Delta as far as Stokes Westernville is concerned.
Is there a chance, this is a bad question, but that we could meet and get this updated in the next couple of months? Would
I'd like
that
to see
even
it
be?
done in the next couple of weeks. I don't see why it would take any longer than that.
Because I'm almost thinking if, the only thing we gotta do is tweak the map, get a little more detail in there, so that way it's not confusing for someone that wants to put in commercial property. That if it is done in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks even, it'd be better in my mind to postpone this for a few weeks to get that tweaked versus having him rip everything out on the commercial overlay for us to approve that and come back in 1 month or 2 months to reapprove that.
The other problem is that you pass the ordinance, you gotta you gotta
Right.
file it with the state, you gotta publish, you gotta, do all kinds of things, and then to have to then do that all over again for an amendment.
Because that just could take a year or something.
Yeah,
Go through all those steps.
I would recommend and rather see you try to get this straightened out first and then pass the whole thing all at once.
That's what I would rather do too. I think it's better for
Up to you.
everybody.
It's up to you guys.
But that's my thought.
So,
That would help you, Glenn, too, because we'd be making the overlay up to speed, right?
I just have to add one thing.
Okay.
It took 3 months to find out who had control of the canal behind the library.
That's a very unique situation.
Yeah.
So I hear your concerns about the state-owned property that may be in the overlay zone. But if you think of it this way too, there could be a wetland in the overlay zone. There could be a steep slope in the overlay zone, but when that party comes there, that's the first thing that's gonna be brought up, and you can be like, yeah, your idea is great, but you can't do it on that site. So for that map to show, now you're bringing in, do we put the terrain in? Do we put the soil suitability maps in? How much, there's, probably 40% of that overlay is not gonna be usable. But it was the fair, I don't like using the word fair, but it was one way of showing that
Well, I
corridor.
understand you're concerned about spot zoning, but zoning is zoning. I mean, you're designating things.
Spot zoning is a very legitimate concern because courts are always very concerned with spot zoning.
Yeah, the point with this, and I explained it the last time you asked me the question. Remember the sequence of things that happen if somebody wants to come in and do something. They don't come to the ZBA, they don't come to the planning board, they go to the codes officer. Okay, and I want to do this in such and such a spot. The codes officer is going to look at it and said, that's state land there, you can't do that. Or state DOT will never give you a front on Route 46, you're wasting your time. That's the first filter right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if they said, well, we still want to do it, and you said, well, you can go talk to the planning board and the zoning board, in which case it will come into the planning board, talk about what you want to do it. We are required, under this one now, we are required to review it. And if they recommend, so, okay, go ahead if you want to, but we would point out the same things. You have restrictions in there that will never allow you to actually do this. Even though it may be something that the overlay would allow you to do, the conditions of the land and the property. It would be like buying a lot someplace that somebody put a deed restriction on. Oh, it's in an RA zone, I can do anything I want. No, your deed has put a restriction on it. You signed the contract when you bought the property. The zoning has nothing to do with that. That's a totally different condition. And that's what you're talking about with the canal bed, with Route 46, whether you can have front on it or not. All of those things are outside the purview of zoning. The codes officer would be the first one to point that out. And if they insist on it, they will come to the planning board. We'd point it out again and say, you go to the state. If the state says you can have the front on 46 and they said you can use the canal bed, we'll consider your application. That's the kind of control that you have over it. Now, I know you think that you put the thing there and you're encouraging everybody, oh, I can just go ahead and do that. That's never been the case anywhere in the town. You still have to comply with the zoning. You still have to come in and talk to the codes officer. This is what I want to do. Here's the plans that I've made out. And he's going to look at it and he's going to say, yeah, on that property, it's a legitimate, I'll write you a permit. If he looks at it and say, no, your dimensions are wrong, you have to go to the zoning board and get an area variance. Or if he looks at it and said, that's not even a permitted use, you have to go and get a use variance. That's the first filter that happens. None of this other stuff you're worried about happens until after that. That's why we weren't too worried about this overlay, because there's so many other things that happen in the meantime that are going to prevent somebody from coming in. Well, I thought I could do that because you have the overlay. No,
The burden of due diligence still remains with the purchaser of any subject parcel and their legal representation as to the suitability for their intended purposes. And that's on them and not on the town in any way, shape, or form. So I think, as Carl stated, that the commercial overlay basically creates possibility, but the land, the suitability, any other conditions, DEC, wetland, steep slope, etc., are factors that the buyer would need to be aware of. That would be part of their due diligence process.
Yeah, because Scott has asked me in a couple of cases, somebody was looking at a lot, and he said, it's substandard, should I send them to you for an area variance? I said, well, first thing you ought to do, Scott, find out if they can even meet the New York State Sanitary Code. Can they get 100 feet between their well and their septic system? If they can't do that, there's no point in them having them come into us, because you won't grant it because they can't meet the required codes. Now, I don't know what happened with that one. I presume we went back and talked to the people or whatever, but they never came to us for the area variance. So there's a lot of filters that happen before anything would come before the boards.
Do you know some other towns that have employed an overlay?
Yeah, town of Vienna has some.
That's a friendly.
I would have to pull out their map. In fact, most of the maps, and the reason we didn't have a problem with that is most of the maps look very similar to this, because a lot of them have used Tug Hill for their mapping capabilities. And for assistance on how you put the ordinance together. We wouldn't have had the overlay in there if the planner from Tug Hill hadn't said, yeah, that's not a bad idea because it gives you a little more flexibility, but without turning everything loose on everybody.
Mhm. Well, I'm more than happy to pursue Bill's idea and try to get them to somewhat commit a schedule so we can keep it moving. And report back with where we're going.
Any comments, you guys?
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, like the town of Lee, that's just a commercial district? They don't have an
I think
overlay
they outlined that, that's like 600 feet on either side of Turin Road or
as a
the
commercial
other one.
district, but that's a little
That
different.
that is allocated for commercial, so you can just go put a commercial thing in there.
Okay. So that's
That's
quick.
a little bit different.
No
That's
planning
that's
board.
much more wide open.
No
There's
planning board review. as
No
long as it
planning board
meets
review
other
or
codes.
whatever.
Okay.
They just get their permit and they go do it. This imposes controls on it.
Anything? You want to table it till?
Yeah, so- I'm satisfied that it will work out with the overlay district. And that you'll meet the goal that you're trying to do is to have some review of commercial uses in that.
Yeah.
In that.
And in this case,
zone.
based on the last comments, there are now 2 required reviews. Originally, we said the ZBA could refer to the planning board. Now it shall be referred to the planning board first.
Mhm.
Then they recommend to the ZBA whatever conditions that they think ought to be on it, and the ZBA can add additional ones.
Okay.
And it could be somebody comes in and we put the conditions, and I don't want to do it anyway, but again, it's like Bill said, the caveat is on the buyer of the property. You don't make an assumption about what you can do just because you saw something. You better ask, because if you don't ask and the answer is no, you don't have any real recourse.
Based on, Carl's explanation tonight and at the last meeting in more detail about the commercial overlay and the map, I'm fine with it the way it is, but if it will help Len to be more satisfied, if we want to pursue maybe a more detailed map, but we don't want to have everything on that map because it's going to be too cumbersome.
Right.
But if we can meet with, those associated parties, as long as it doesn't get delayed too long, because they've already been working on this, 4-5 years?
Almost 5 years now, yeah.
And it's a really good document other than the little glitch with the commercial overlay, and then, like Carl said, it's just a corridor. It's not saying that, you could come in and just start building commercial property without going through.
It's not a commercial zone.
So similar to the variance process, adjacent neighbors would be notified.
Yes. For any one of the permits, the adjacent neighbors are notified. We would have to conduct a public hearing before we could take any action on it and accept public comments. And if there were significant comments, we would have to go and revisit it before we would grant a permit. That's part of any special use permit process.
What do you guys think?
I kind of agree with you, Larry, that it's been 4 years.
With another year.
Yeah,
It's government.
But if you want to have a meeting, you want to meet with Tug Hill and somebody from the county just for more.
Well, actually, okay, I guess at this point, my thing is the map. I think we could have a map that made it easier for someone to look at and go, well, okay, this can't happen, this can't happen, this can't happen. Instead of finding out after they bought something that maybe their idea isn't gonna fly.
The map will never tell that.
And have never
No.
gonna tell that.
Yeah.
Well, what the map could show is the property lines. We've got state property inside the overlay.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be a big problem to have a map that showed that.
Well, if you take a
Have to
more
be off the
detailed
lake.
look at the map, you will see every single boundary of every single piece of property in the town of Western,
Except the
All-
state property.
including the state property, because it actually shows a corridor where the state actually has rights of way. At this detail level, you don't see as much of it, but the map can be a little bit larger than that. But if you look at the current tax maps, which is what this is based on, they actually show where the canal path actually goes. It's on the maps now. It's not hidden.
But on that one it is.
Well, on that one, because the scale is a little bit smaller, but the final map can easily be much bigger than that. But every property boundary in the town is on there, including where the state owns stuff.
And it's
I have a different copy. I don't have it here, but if you look at this small one underneath, I went to the county mapping system and I pulled these down, and it shows all of them. And if you look at it, you can actually see where there's a small right of way where the canal actually goes up there, and it actually shows up on the maps.
That I would like to.
But
be able to
that's
see
done at
that.
a slightly smaller scale, so there's more detail on the thing. Now, I can take that map and convert what Tug Hill gave us into that, and it'll have the same stuff. It has all the property boundaries on it. And that was my original intention, but Tug Hill said, we got the full up GIS service, which is what the county uses and Tug Hill and everybody else uses, the standard mapping system. I use a CAD program at home. But lines or no lines on there, it doesn't tell you who owns them. It just says that's where there's a property boundary. And that level of detail on that map, you're never, ever gonna get. It's just too much.
Unless you put it online like the county, then you have to zoom in, but then.
Well,
you
even
have
that,
to
if you zoom into the counties, you'll get down to the point where you can click on it and it'll show you who owns the property and what
Yeah.
property value is. I don't think you want that in your zoning
Oh,
map.
no.
This, the review by the county was, I think, 4.5 pages. Yeah, four pages. It confuses me a little bit why the county didn't want to know what you did with their input.
They did want to know. There's a form that goes back to the county that we passed at the thing, and I actually sent it back to them that says, we've reviewed your comments, we've incorporated all of them, or you can go back and say, we reviewed your comments, incorporated all, we didn't incorporate this one, you give a reason why you didn't, and you give the vote of the board, which has to be a supermajority to override the county. So we went back and we said, we did all this, and there's a resolution that got sent in with it.
That's this document?
That's the page that goes back. There's a separate resolution that was filed with it.
Okay, well, it says it was filed with the town attorney or the Tug Hill Commission. The working group has verified with either the town attorney or the Tug Hill Commission that those items indicated for consideration and all required changes have been made to the drafts of those documents.
Yeah. That was in reference to eliminating mobile home parks. That was the only comment that they kind of said, you need to go talk to your town attorney or talk to the Tug Hill people as to whether you can do that or not. And we went back and they said, yeah, you can do that.
So I just don't see any documentation for the county 4 pages being addressed.
We sent it back to them. There's a cover letter that goes back, looks like the one that came from the county.
Did I get it?
And there's a resolution. Probably not, but it's online.
Okay, well, I just.
All that documentation is part of the stuff that's there.
Just,
Along with the environmental quality review, all of the other paperwork is there.
If you wanted to schedule a meeting to review that all of those changes have been done, which is actually the work of the zoning board, but as a board, if you wanted to review all of those changes, I think Carl could present the letter that the county gave us for all the changes to be made, and you could verify.
I've got that.
Well, he's got a copy of that,
Okay. Yeah,
but the only.
I just don't see any documentation.
And I specifically called the guy who actually signed the letter that here's the review. And I said, we've gone through it. We have made all the changes you recommended. We've got one comment coming back. Do you want us to resubmit the document so that you can review it again? And he said, no. As long as you've made the changes, we don't need it back again. He said, just put the cover letter in and the resolution that authorized it. That's the only thing that goes back to him.
Can I make just a recommendation? I think we'll need to table this and either put together work and sit down so it can be reviewed to your satisfaction, because otherwise we're not
Getting anywhere.
right. And it's
hot.
Well, can
So-
Carl or Bill see about setting up that meeting?
yeah.
To adjust the map?
I'll contact Tug Hill and see what we have to give them to make adjustments on the map.
Thank you.
I just don't
Or
want,
more detail.
Right.
yeah, I just don't want to table it. and-
Well, like I say,
Well,
I'm
that's
not sure how much
what
more
I'm not-
detail we can put on the map, other than the county said we would like to see the property lines on it, so we had the map done up with the property lines. That was their comment, show the property lines, we added them on there so we could see them.
So
That was the only change that they wanted on the map, include property lines.
and then maybe once you guys get a hold of those people, we can set up a quick work night.
And if the overlay was blown up to also see the property lines, that would
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, except the overlay doesn't follow property lines. It follows the center line of each of the road.
But you'd see that,
We can
but
see
you'd
the
see
property
that.
lines.
Oh, yeah, you could probably see them in there.
You'd see that the overlay.
Yeah,
was-
that's a question of how you print the map out and how, what the resolution of the lines are.
Okay.
Just a thought then, to make that section bigger, would it be advantageous in the zoning then to have like 4 separate maps blown up?
Separate page.
2 for this corridor and 2 for that corridor, that way you'd see the detail.
Yeah,
That way, 'cause
that's what I'm thinking.
Well, you take the entire map and break it up into 4 sections that are matched.
Yeah,
Right, yeah. Have one like that, so if you just wanted to see it
right.
Yeah.
at a high level, and then separate maps, so
Right.
that way you can see.
Yeah,
it.
because one of the things we
Zoom
did
in.
include in there, the 2 on the bottom side there that I was referencing before, those are actually addendum to the map that's in there that shows where the 2 hamlets are.
If Carl was to do that, would that satisfy your questions, you think, or you still want?
You can see the lines inside the overlay, yeah. I think that would be a big improvement.
presumably at some point, we would generate a PDF of the map that would be able to be expanded and contracted so that people, it would be posted so that people could blow it up and see what they would need to
Actually,
see.
that was printed from the PDF.
Yeah, so if people could hit the town's website, open it up. If they're having trouble seeing a specific parcel that they have a prospective interest in, they just blow it up to 300%. And they can see what they need to see. Yeah.
Carl, would that be something that you could take care of in the next week or so? I just don't want to lose.
I will have to see if my CAD program will import the GIS it supposedly does. If
Or
it
maybe-
does, then I can do that.
Yeah, or maybe Tug Hill could.
Other
create-
than that, I can go to the county, use their map with all the tax parcels on it, and do a quad on the thing and do a.
Yeah.
Because originally that's what I did. I just had lines on it that showed where the overlay was.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that may then eliminate the need for a meeting that might,
Yeah.
schedule a month or 2 out.
Yeah, we don't wanna, we'd like to do that. Okay? Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
And thanks for all your hard work on this.
Yeah.
I like the other changes that you incorporated.
Under, the last thing under old business, Larry, is the live streaming, an update on where we are with that.
It's basically been tabled. It's up to the board what they want to do. My recommendation would be if we go with Zoom, get just the monthly, subscription. That way, if you want to cancel it, you're not going to lose any money. You know, it's like a buck or two more. All you need is a camera and a tripod. The thing is, what we got to think about is that, you know, we probably want to experiment with this a little bit. You know, once we get it up and running, maybe try it at a planning board or a zoning board meeting first. That way, you know, I could run the Zoom, and then we got to think about if we're going to expand that to the town board meeting. Are you going to have someone monitoring, you know, the streaming, or are we just going to start it and then not worry about it and stuff like that? There's just a lot of questions. I'd hate to have you guys go down the path and then all of a sudden have to stop doing it, because that may be difficult.
Well, maybe we can sit down and,
Should, if we did put it in place, and I'm low tech, is there a way to know how many people are using the service?
Yeah, Zoom will tell you that.
That would be good. You know, if we go through 12 months and it's not getting much
Well,
use, then that would be a consideration, but.
Right, but if there's one or two people that are using it, they may be using it because they can't
They have to.
attend, they can't, you know.
Yeah.
For certain reasons or whatever, so then you can't pull the plug once you start something like that.
But we would at least know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got the issue, you're gonna have to keep copies of those things.
Right.
I know Zoom will do it for a certain period of time, but you can always write them to a CD.
Well, we got,
We're gonna,
Yeah.
right,
yeah,
that would be the
Planning
plan,
on
is to
doing
it.
put them on a seat, on a
flash drive.
on a flash
Yeah,
drive.
sometimes drive, yeah.
Yeah, we'd keep it forever. You know, what we'd do is we'll see how much space we have. I can't remember. I researched a couple months ago. Probably enough to hold 4 or 5 meetings out there. Then we just rotate the old one off,
Yeah.
dump it to a flash drive, so that we will always have a copy of it. And then also, if someone wants to watch the meeting, they don't have to, you know, attend the Zoom meeting live. They can go
back
out
and
there
watch it.
tomorrow and watch it, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, you know.
So,
One idea I also had is, like, say we'll have to find out the optimum place to put the camera. We might just have cabling that would run it up here, so maybe the town clerk or me could run it that way. So that way you don't have to have someone back there sitting.
that would be ideal.
Who does it at the church?
Dennis.
Dennis?
Yeah.
Oh, Donna's husband?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and I help him sometimes when, he's not available.
And that's been working well.
Oh, yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then that's only,
Pan the room?
Yeah.
too?
Yeah, if you get the right camera.
at church, what we
Set it
do
up
is we
with
pan the audience and everybody waves, and that way you can see who's in the audience and stuff. But we probably won't do that here.
No,
Yes. The other thing you'll have to think about too is that, say, in the near future, you start opening comments from the visitor. So if you're Zooming this, you're gonna have to open it up to comments whoever is on the Zoom conference. So
Right.
that's why you're gonna probably need someone to monitor the live streaming. So that way they be able to get that person's comment.
when we get
You
there.
will need you'll need a dedicated setup to do the broadcast and the recording.
Yeah.
But that's not expensive.
No. So I don't know what the course, if you want to slowly move forward, I could meet with you and
Yeah,
I could,
let's meet
in the
one
next
day.
month or so, get the equipment, we could sign up for the subscription.
Yeah,
I wanna test it out, I don't wanna just, plop it in here and start,
Right.
having people upset that they can't get in for some various reasons and so forth. We gotta
we'll test it on planning board or zoning board.
Something like that.
Thank
So
you.
You guys are always the guinea pig.
All right, moving on to new business. The first thing is we've been, at one of the trainings, they had a person there regarding investments. Larry and I talked about it some. We looked at our bank for an investment, what their policy was, and for the bank, it's a CD for a 3-month or 6-month. And the other place was, for a 3-month CD, for an example, it's 4.3% that they're giving you. This other company is called New York Class, which has been around since 1989. It has 1,400 participants throughout the state, like towns and cities and that. They offer a 5.19% interest rate at this time. Last month, an investment of $500,000, for example, yielded a $2,200 return. And with New York class, the funds are considered liquid. They won't be tied up, so they're readily available if you need them for something, unlike a CD, which works in certain periods of time. I don't know, I didn't get to personally speak with her. She left me a voicemail with some of the information after I had contacted her. So I don't know if they offer a CD or not, but it's one of the things that many towns are doing. So Larry and I have talked about it different times, considering investing some of our money into it, and that's what I have on it. And how do the other board members feel about it?
Would that be insured? That would be my big concern, is
It's actually a state-operated fund.
Right.
so that
It
it would
is
be
insured.
insured by New York State.
Yeah,
And one
That's
nice
what I
thing-
would wanna know.
One nice thing about this fund too is if you, I don't want to say overinvest, say you put a lot of money in there, but all of a sudden you have an emergency where you need those funds. It's only like a 24-hour turnaround that you can get
Right.
the money back. Like with a CD, you're locked in for 3 months and so
Or
forth.
you lose, right?
Yeah, and then you can also, we got to ask that question, but I think you can also increase the amount that you have funded. You know,
Right.
it's not, you're not locked in, it's liquid. So,
So you're not gonna lose anything if you have to take it out for it's
Right.
not time period.
No,
right, yeah,
penalty.
yeah. They
not
probably
with New
do
York
the-
class,
Right.
with our
With a
bank, we
CD,
have to
the
be a
CD is
CD.
like-
CD you lose.
We,
Yeah,
what, 6 months or a year?
3 months.
Yeah.
3 months.
3 months or 6 months they have.
There's a lot of towns that are starting to invest in this.
So any thoughts? Do you want us to continue to look into this for the details?
Yeah, we have the money to do that,
Yeah,
if it's just sitting in the bank.
Because
okay.
even 500,000, you're gonna make, or like you said, over $2,000
Yeah.
a month.
Yeah.
You're talking, 25,000 that we could earn,
Yeah,
that helps to offset taxes and so forth. Instead of just sitting there.
Do it, go ahead.
If everybody's in agreement, I think, Charlie, if we can make a motion, would it be appropriate then to make a motion to, since Annie is the financial officer, make a motion to give her authority to finalize the questions and also to invest funds? Could we do that?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
I,
Thank you. Okay, next is our, I just need approval for our loan. We looked at, Preston got information from 2 sources for a loan for our new snowplow truck. One is from SunFirst, and we have their formal proposal, and the other is Tracy Road, where the truck is coming from. Sun Road offers a slightly better interest rate for us. Sun Road for 5 years is at 6.41%, and Tracy Road for 5 years is at 6.67%. So we were thinking SunFirst would be the one to go with. I've already contacted our accountant to get us our financials that we need for for our audits, annual audits. We would make a down payment, of course, but these might be modified some because these were for these were a down payment of $120,000 at this time.
So this isn't like bonding or anything, it's just a loan.
Right.
Right.
Just for one.
Is that a lease thing, or?
No, it's just
No,
a loan.
it's just
a
a-
loan? Okay.
They weren't referring to it as a lease. I forgot the reason why now. It's very warm.
The company said that the trucks, they said that They use the term lease, but it's not like a lease like
Lease,
what we're
yeah.
familiar with.
No,
where
I
you-
know that.
Yeah,
No,
it's
right.
basically a loan.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion? Should we have a motion for that? Can I have a motion to pursue with Sunfirst? If everyone's in agreement?
I'll make that
Or-
motion. to-
Okay, in a second. Well, did you have any questions about it, Dave?
Can you pay them off early without penalty? That's what I wanted to know.
Yes.
Because I know the
We
town
can.
does that sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because what we're also looking into, Bill, we're gonna, working with paperwork through his company, because they'll have better rates, but there's a long process to get that, you know.
for our next two
We can't
trucks.
do it for this truck, so if we get all that in place and there's better rates, we could refinance this one through a different company to lower the interest rates, and also, then we'd have everything in place for truck number 2 and 3.
Yeah,
But we gotta have this approved when we take delivery in August,
August.
right?
we need this done.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Right.
Thank you. Just a quick update on the salt building. Preston and I met with Tug Hill regarding a grant program for, because it's through the DEC, the grant, which would fund replacing that building. The two ladies we met with had some suggestions. We're of the opinion that we should just continue to replace the current salt building that's there. Because and this would not happen this year. We have to apply by the end of July, and Tug Hill will write the grant for us. So the other day when we met with them, we gave them a bunch of information. We probably are going to, based on their recommendation, go with hybrid for the building, which is much like the sand building, the
It's a
canopy fabric
building.
type.
Okay.
Mainly
With a concrete
because hybrid is one of the only companies that meet the 4 standards with the state. The other company that gave a bid, they were not sure of, and we hadn't received anything back from them stating they meet the 4 standards. So hybrid was highly recommended by Tug Hill, and so if everyone's in agreement,
Is that a full grant, matching grant?
it's a matching grant, but it's on a slide based on how many grants there are, and there's not 100% we'll get, because we already have a salt building that will get approved. Our approval will be based on how many grants are taken in. But we have a good chance because the Mohawk is right in back of our town barn.
In addition, like our share, Preston's men could do some of the work,
Right.
which would be part
There's
of
a
our
work-
funding for that, so.
So they'll do the prep work for the building going up, and all of that will count towards the matching fund.
Mhm.
They won't count the removal of the building.
Just, do you know, does it have a concrete foundation like our existing?
Yeah, I believe so.
buildings? Yeah.
Do you wanna?
"42 feet wide, 40 feet long."
I think it's the same, might be slightly larger than what's currently there, because it
Yeah.
could use a little bit more room.
Yeah, it is larger than.
Wind
Yeah.
speed 101 miles per hour. Did we exceed that 3 years ago?
We might have, but the other building withstood it.
That doesn't have a tapered floor to it, does it?
I'm not seeing anything about the foundation yet.
What I'm talking about I've seen in other salt buildings in other places around the state, the salt building, the floor is on a taper
Right.
because you get salt brine at the base, which they pump out, and then you spray salt brine instead of putting down road salt.
My thought would be this grant from the DEC would spec that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, Preston probably,
Preston has the other, but unfortunately he couldn't be here tonight.
right? I'm thinking it would have the concrete foundation. The DEC is gonna be all
Yeah,
about that.
so is everyone, any more questions about it?
Let's proceed with the grant.
Yeah. Good
Okay,
idea. Do you need a motion for that? or-
Yeah. Can I have a motion? We'll proceed with the grant.
I'll
Yeah,
make
with
that
that
motion that we proceed with the grant.
Okay, in a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I think this is the last item of business. We need to, make surplus, Preston asked me to please make surplus the 2016 Chevy pickup with plow, which we replaced in June with the 2023 Ford. And, replace the 2011 Freightliner plow truck, which will be replaced in August with the 2024 Western Star, to make them surplus so that he can list them on on an auction site, for example, Auctions International. So, any
You have a thought?
questions, thoughts? Can I have a motion to
I'll
surplus
make a motion that we put them up for auction.
make them surplus, okay?
I'll second
Second,
that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, a motion to, any other business, I guess I should ask you.
I just want to make one reminder to the board. I had said last year that this would be my last year, and this will still be my last year.
Okay.
So you want to be thinking about starting to look for someone to replace me by September and October, because you might have to make some budgeting adjustments.
Yeah,
So you want to have a good idea of where you are with that before budget time.
Are you familiar with the town of Lee's current legal?
No.
No? Okay.
well, thank you, Charlie, for your years of time with us.
How many years, Charlie?
This is my 40th.
40?
Too
Yeah.
many.
I think this calls for a party.
40 more, Charlie.
Can't do
Just
it.
getting going, man.
Okay, thank you,
Your
everyone.
work has
A
been
mo-
very appreciated.
Yes. Yes, a motion to adjourn,
I'll make that motion.
second, all in favor? Thank you, everyone.
That's longer than Netherlands.
I'm longer than that.
Good to see you. See you the next time.
I was gonna ask you tonight when you were gonna announce it, because we were thinking about that with the budget.
Yeah. The mayor just needs to.
Nice big screen up on that wall.
See the.
Thank you, Brenda.
Either call dinners or.
That'd be nice, I don't think they want to have a big screen up funding.
But I mean,
Civil Beach, okay.
You look
Give
beat.
them a
or any, it works. Like,
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's pretty
Charlie.
simple. I helped the pastor's husband does it for church and stuff, so it's very simple.
Okay?
But when I signed up for that budget workshop in Monroe, because they're always good.
It's too hot.
Murphy's still busy.
I'm not retired from practice
You're
law.
retired from this.
I'm retired.
Retired from this. See you later.
She did. When you guys went on the hill, she looked around and I said, hey, what's your again? And she come in and they,
No, it won't be, that'd be spot evaluation.
well, thank you, Brenda. Okay. You guys all set with this
You
bed?
mean like if someone buys a farm and then puts a building? Well, then that would be. I don't think after they get. the
Probably
plan,
not.
and it goes off, then that would be.
Certain properties are categorized as businesses. Like if they're under LLC format, it's considered a business.
Well, if you're still a farmer, your land is evaluated through a.
But it's still agricultural. But when they
That's not.
I see the one with the full-size picture in the Herald.
Yeah.
I can only see them 2 weeks after they posted
Yeah, I usually buy the Boonville Herald. I brought it down to
That's all farm
Missy.
activity. So
Yeah.
you can have a corporation, like, say you want, like,
You wanna be
have
next
a
in there?
corporation. That's not a
I guess-
business.
I'm
in the terms of-
just doing it, but listen, you're here, let me get a picture of a couple of
Taxes related to
those.
filing your income tax, but
Because
not,
I gotta get something in this week anyway, so.
you're still gonna be zoned as a farm if you have a farm.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Just sitting here, or do you want me to stand?
No, you just sit there, that's good. That's fine.
I don't take a very good picture, Kyle.
Everybody says that, I know.
Dollar Tree, cluster zones, if they put a Dollar Tree over there, they'd be considered a commercial thing. Even though farm is starting to keep looking
Yeah,
at
but
it.
you don't understand it because it's agriculture.
Right.
It's not
Turn
farm,
it to me.
it's agriculture.
Right.
So, you know, it can be,
All right, now,
some
you're a
farms
lifelong
are
resident,
And,
right?
well, now farms are
specialized
bigger.
court,
Yeah, you
but
can be
it's actually
incorporated.
agriculture,
also.
not farms.
Right.
It's just, there's the business.
As long as you're with agriculture, because there's trucks that come and get corn.
You've been on, have you been on any other boards in the town?
Okay,
so this is right.
I filled in for,
The way they were saying, they're kind of making this question.
left
Yeah.
out.
Get it.
As long as it's related to agriculture.
That way?
Right, yeah. 'Cause it-
So like
He
if you had a
was-
farm,
he
you
was
had
EPA
20 trucks running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would think that'd be a commercial trucking. So as long as
He
you're
went, he just moved to Lisa,
agricultural products.
but,
So let's say,
I filled out his term and then ran.
here.
Oh,
And
okay.
outside of that, they were doing like a
Afterwards.
different LLC at that same.
But I've
location.
only
They were
been doing
coal,
town
they were
work.
doing pellets, they were doing all these other different things. That's outside of the farming.
Well, then they would probably have.
You know what I mean?
Now,
Because that's outside the commercial overlay though.
you're part of the overall
You
farming
understand where I'm
stuff.
coming from?
Yeah, they would
Did
have
you
to
do
come.
farming before that, or?
You had
No,
to
I
run
worked
their business.
for, actually, I worked for Pettibone for over 30 years.
Oh, it's
Oh,
very
okay.
bad.
And then I
There's
left
some
that and did
places in
some
town that they're running under.
independent work for a Canadian company, and then I went to work for Bartels.
You know what I mean? As long as you're
Oh,
not.
okay, that's good, that's
Right, as long
good.
as you're not
So
infringing on
I-
anybody else's
Yeah.
But
farm.
on my travel, for Pettibone, I used to travel.
How you been?
Good, how about
I
you?
was on the road
Yeah.
for them, at one time, almost 9 months of the year.
Yeah.
What
That was all
I used to do.
Yeah,
They would fix
I
it.
was, and I've been all around the world 3
Down
times.
by,
Down by where you go to the turn, right on.
That's your heart, I have a big question. I've been to Europe a lot, I've been to Australia and a couple other places.
Oh, yeah.
Never that far, so.
Right down from
Now
Egan's,
I've,
almost from Egan's down.
see, I've
I
been
think that's where
Denmark,
it switches to the city.
Yeah.
of Rome.
Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, Saudi Arabia, South Africa,
Okay.
Malaysia, Taiwan,
Yeah.
Mexico.
That was for Pettibone?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I traveled actually for Bartels to, I've been to Brazil a couple of times. I traveled for both Pettibone and Bartels.
They're hauling coal, they're hauling something else that's not.
When I worked at Bartels, they did
The way
oil and
it's-
gas. And they made machines that made flexible tubing,
Some of that stuff is like.
pipe,
Yeah.
for the oil industry.
You're taking
Pettibone,
it back to the farmers.
I worked on-
Equipment, yeah.
I worked on hydraulic cranes, and most of those were military assignments. That's why I was overseas a lot, going to different bases. But we also did a lot with the, what they call the White Fleet of the Navy, which was actually spy ships.
We can't see that, I wish we could see that this way, so we can see what they're talking about.
They were
We can't.
I
oceanographic.
can't.
No, because even over here.
They were doing mapping.
Yeah, but I was involved a lot with the Navy and all that, with running around doing stuff.
This is SOS, this is not.
But I've been on oil rigs,
That's not all statement.
Wow, neat.
a little bit of everything.
Yeah, you got quite a history.
Everything goes OS here, OS here, and OS here, that's statement over here, that's statement here.
Some of it's county. There's state and county, there's state and county forested lands in there, that's basically what the OS is, and then there's a few areas that are just around it.
But there's certain parcels in here that are private owned.
Yes.
And now we find out that this microphone works and the other one doesn't.
Because that's county forestation area there.
But wouldn't it be like if this was state land here, then I had private here, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we're not, that we don't do a zone, okay? We put up big zones, okay? If you own a private piece of property in here, you're gonna be subject to those restrictions. That's the way zoning works. If you happen to own private land in an open space zone, you have to follow the guidelines of the open space zone. Most of them are state and county forest land. But that's pretty much the same as the old map. I mean, if you look over here at this one, you see the same thing. All open space.
Head down the road here.
Matches it almost bit for bit.
Except for the statement, that's all.
Well, I mean, it shows it as state land, but this is all OS district, whether you live there. Yeah. So you got Buck Hill Road that goes up there and a few others.
That's our zone.
Yeah, well, now it becomes RRA.
Yeah.
That's a little broader.
Yeah.
We eliminated this residential C. If you look at the old ordinance, they said it was primarily aimed at the camps, all of the camps.
Well, why, I got a question for you though, why is Woods Valley not commercial industrial? Because it's commercial zone.
We left,
Because that's.
it actually isn't, it's mostly in the RRA zone. The commercial industrial is a relic from the old one, that's where Only's place is, and the commercial industrial is up by the,
Jones's old gas
it's
station.
up by the Jones's gas station, the repair shop up by the American Legion.
Because it's.
Those were there originally, they literally cut them out of the thing so they could cover it, and then just left the rest of it alone.
Because under the tax maps and under that, and under the jurisdiction of the county, or the town too, Woods Valley is considered commercial zone.
No, Woods Valley is considered a commercial operation.
But it's under the.
It's a
under
commercial operation and it sits in the RR zone.
But it's under the land use where they're taxed under, it says commercial.
The way the assessor characterizes the land has nothing to do with the zone that it sits in. Okay, it's a commercial operation, but it's in the RR district. It doesn't change because they have a commercial operation. It's still the RR district. And it'll be in the RRA
But that doesn't make a
district.
difference though, because they're piecemealing it here, but they're not.
We left those in. Again, they were the artifacts of the original one. Those are the only two commercial industrial zones, and they have specific things that they can and can't do in there. We left them in place because that's where they were, rather than just eliminate them.
It just doesn't make a sense. It doesn't.
Why?
Good question.
Why not?
Good questions. What do you think? Because with Woods Valley, it's considered a commercial space.
Again, you're equating the use with the zone that it sits in. They have nothing to do with it. It's a commercial operation. It was put in place by whoever granted them the variance or permit or whatever.
But now I got a question too. Well,
But it still stays as the RRA zone.
Then what about AOK Marina? Just for an example, it's AOK.
AOK Marina right now is in an RA zone.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be considered a commercial zone?
It is. It's a commercial operation. It doesn't change the zone because it's being used commercially. The fact that it's being used commercially doesn't change the zone that it sits in. Okay? If they were to try to put that in today, in an RA zone, they'd have to come in for a use variance, which they probably wouldn't get.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Did they ever have to do that, do you think?
It was grandfathered in. It existed before the zoning ordinance was passed.
Okay, yeah.
The only change they made is they expanded the number of their campsites and stuff, but they never changed the land area or anything else. So yeah, what's used in the land doesn't change the zone that it sits on. Okay, so right now you've got an RC zone here, the commercial residential community zone, but the convenience store is in there. That's a commercial use, but it doesn't change the land that it sits on. It's still a residential community.
I got a question too. Under the commercial zone, the way it sits now.
There is no commercial zone.
A zone or a commercial overlay. And this commercial overlay, would those properties get reevaluated?
No.
Because they were the only ones that can have it.
It doesn't change the zone they sit on. They're not going to be reevaluated just because somebody said, if you come in and give us the right answers, that you could do that. If they change the use, the assessor is going to go in and change the value on it because now it's a commercial property and he has a different set of standards.
But this is the only place I'm just saying for an example, this is the only place in the town that we can use commercial space.
No.
It just doesn't make sense.
No. This one simply makes it a little easier to come in and get approvals. You come in here and you ask for a special use permit. Planning board's got to look at it. Zoning board's got to look at it. I mean, first of all, the codes officer has got to tell you whether or not he's even going to allow you to do it. But the key is within there, the request would become a special use permit request and not a use variance. If they came in and they needed a use variance for what they wanted to put in, they wouldn't get it because it's almost impossible to get a use variance because The use variance requires you to show that you couldn't make a reason, and the wording in the state law is a reasonable return for any of the permitted or conditionally permitted uses. They would have to come in and document that if I bought a piece of property here, and it says it's RRA, and I wanted to put in a manufacturing thing, that would not be permitted. That's not part of it. Even under the commercial thing, they'd have to come in with use variance. And they said, but I can't make a profit on my business if I can't put it there. I said, no. If you own the land, first prove to me that you can't make a reasonable return by using it as a residence. Prove to me you can't make a reasonable return by using it as a farm. And you have to document all of this in order to prove it. This is not the town ordinance, this is state law. All we did was incorporate it in the ordinance. That's the way that particular one works. You have to prove that, and it's what they call, I forget, it's too hot in here for me to remember the exact term on the thing.
Next week's meeting is outside.
No, you have to prove that there is a financial hardship to you for not getting the use variance. And you have to do that by actually documenting it. You can't come in and say, I can't do this or I can't do that. I don't know if you were here when Jeff Petrosky came in and he wanted to put up the barn. I said, that's a use variance. You gotta show us that you can't make any reasonable return on that piece of property other than putting the pole barn on the thing. And you have to be able to prove it on paper, what the courts call competent financial evidence.
Because even though the commercial overlay is, you said 600 feet on Gifford Hill Road, but also here, let's say, what's
Right there, okay,
They
yeah.
would still be in a commercial overlay zone. They would still be in the commercial zone.
Somebody wants to go.
Me too.
No, the commercial overlay is not a zone. It is not a zone. The only zones in here are these. RRA, RC, RH, CI, and OS.
Our bunnies are out.
I know, I've been
Two
watching
overlays.
them, they're so cute.
This corridor and this corridor.
They're never more than 6 feet apart.
There's also a land
And then when
conservation
the rats come out, and then the foxes come out.
Yeah.
The Mohawk River feeder and across into the other.
Ah,
Those are not zones.
ouch.
We got the pattern.
Yeah, I got the pack. Oh.
Yeah, they look at them on TV.
That's all.